What's going on YouTube? My name is Marcus, aka Apostle, and today I'm going to talk about something that I've been asked about a lot. Honestly, usually people come in to my stream and they're like, hey man, how do I use the Frost Gauntlet? And I kind of go off on a tangent, which I'm kind of going to do now, but I can't really talk about how to use the Frost Gauntlet without talking about how all the gauntlets work, or it wouldn't really come off as well. So what I'm going to do in this video is just kind of talk about aim in general. And I'm going to go into things that people don't really think about a lot when it comes to aim. I feel like when most people think of aim, they think just like point and click, like, oh, I zoom in, oh, I look over here and I shoot and I hit the person. And in reality, yeah, the ability to be able to be accurate with your mouse movements and like be able to jump and flick is huge in aim, obviously. But those things kind of just come with time and come with practice. And I'll go into things on how to practice that, but there's so much more behind it, especially in this game since it's projectile based, that I'm going to touch on a lot of things that a lot of people don't really talk about when it comes to aim. But before I get into it, I just want to let you guys know that I do stream every day, so be sure to check out the live stream down below. And if you guys do find this video helpful, make sure to like and comment. It helps spread the video and helps my channel grow immensely. So if you guys can do that, if you find it helpful, that would really help out my channel, so I'd appreciate that. But all right, let's start with aim. I'm going to talk about what everybody thinks aim is, the whole just point and click, being able to shoot this tower and then immediately come over here and shoot this tower, and just jumping from target to target and just being accurate, I guess, is what most people think aim is. Just being able to move your mouse where the person is and then click on them. Obviously, you guys know the basics. It's just point, click. With projectiles, though, it's a bit different. So this is basically just muscle memory. So what I'd say to do is go get a gauntlet that you're trying to learn with, whether it be frost or flame or whatever, and just get used to shooting at things that like aren't moving. So what I usually do, I'll be running around trying to get warmed up, and I'll pick like this window, try to shoot through the window. Then I'll come over here, pick that tree, hit the tree, jump up over here and do this, and just keep picking different objects. Run around the map. Try to get your movement going so you're constantly moving and shooting like this, because you don't want to be standing still when you shoot. You don't really want to be standing still in Spellbreak ever. I mean, at this point, you really want to be moving forward as much as possible because your strafe's so slow, but that's a completely different video. But basically, in Spellbreak, you don't want to get hit, so you want to be dodging at all times, and what really helps your aim is to have your movement on point. So if you can go here and then get up here really clean and land exactly where you want to be while you're trying to shoot at somebody. So see, I picked that little orb, but just have it for me now. Just pick something and shoot at it. And do this all the time. Well, maybe not like in a game in like an intense situation, but in pre-game lobbies and everything, just pick targets, shoot them, chase somebody down, shoot at them. That's going to help build your muscle memory. But going back to movement, if you can move and see how I kind of keep my momentum a little bit. So I'll do it one more time. So I'm going to like dash off here, and then I'm going to keep strafing. And if you know where you're going to land, it's going to help you so much more with your aim, because you're not going to get stuck on things. Whereas say I'm trying to shoot somebody and then I come up like this and then I get stuck on the edge. I'm going to expect to keep moving. So I'm going to not move my mouse to the right as much because my character is moving to the right. So that's going to make, if I get stuck on things, it's going to make it so much more difficult. So see how I'm moving left and right, and obviously my crosshair is going left and right with me. So in your mind, you're taking that in, right? You may not be consciously thinking about it, but your mind knows that you're moving a little bit as well. So you have to move your mouse a little bit less. So when I walk into something, it takes that away, and your mind's still going to be factoring that in. And so you really need to get your movement down and your movement around the map just fluid. So that way, when you're aiming and your mind is taking in all these things to account for, that there's not really a whole lot getting in the way. You're not walking into rocks. You're kind of just moving fluidly, and you know where your character is going to be. Because if you're trying to hit something and you don't even know where your character is going to be, how are you supposed to hit another character, right? Like if you don't know where you're shooting from, you don't know where you have to aim to hit, if that makes sense. See, like that right there, that little choke right here that I just missed, that I need to not do, because, well, if I'm getting chased, I'm going to die, but it's going to help your aim if you can just get through things smoothly. So that's the first thing. Get your movement down. Make sure you got it fluid. It's not all about standing still and trying to make sure you hit your target like this. Honestly, I'd have a harder time. I have to be constantly like strafing or jumping or doing some type of movement to hit my target. If I'm standing still, I just whiff like 95% of the time. I don't know what it is, but if I'm not moving, I can't hit a shot to save my life. All right. So practicing movement, one thing. Another thing that you really have to think about, especially in this game, this isn't a hit scan game. So the weapons have projectile speeds. So if I shoot a frost shot at this rock, it's going to get there faster, almost immediately, compared to where if I shoot this fireball, it takes 2 to 3 times as long. So everything has a different projectile speed and different arc. And what this means is that you need to manage your distance. In fights in this game, your distance is huge because you're basically predicting where the person's going to be once your projectile gets to them, right? So I'm going to do an explanation with flame right now. So say this guy's moving right here, this little dummy guy. Say he's moving to the right. So let's actually take it and let's see how long it takes. So just pay attention to how long it takes for the rocket to leave my hand and get to that target. So it seems kind of short in this sense, but if somebody's moving and you're trying to predict them, you need to be able to predict where they're going to be in the amount of time that the rocket travels, or the fireball, whatever you want to call it. So the further you are away, the more you're relying on luck, or the more you're relying on the person running exactly where you think they're going to run. So say I think he's running to the right. So since he's right here, I'd shoot over there and he'd run basically into the fireball. But while it's in the air, he has time to switch his trajectory, so he can go to the right and he can just go back to the left once he gets to the middle here. So this right here is why distance is so important with these. So with Frost, that's why Frost is the best long-range weapon. It's basically a sniper because it has such a fast projectile speed. So once you release, it can travel that ground really, really fast, and the person has less time to change their direction of movement. So you need to keep in mind how fast the projectile is that you're using. So if I'm using Frost, I can go longer distances, obviously, than if I'm using Flame. It's much harder to hit a long-range fire shot than it is a long-range ice shot. But just because you can hit super long-range ice shots doesn't mean you should always use it at long range. I'd personally like to use it probably, let's say about this distance is probably the max distance that I'll use it at, and consider it effective, right? Because if they're any further than this, they're going to have a lot of time to move around. So I mean, I'll take these shots all the time. I'll take shots with people that are like all the way up there just because why not? They're fun. They're fun to go for. But if you want to be effective with the gauntlet, you want to use it at its best range. And so with ice, personally, to me, it's like a medium to long-ish. I wouldn't necessarily say long. I mean, you can use it long range and you can hit a shot. But like I was saying, once it gets too far, it's basically luck. So here's the reason why you don't want to use ice short range. You can use it, but it's obviously not the most effective. Toxic would be, because it's basically a shotgun, or Flame is also very good short range, but sometimes you can hurt yourself with it. So imagine this is where the person is, this little spot here, and they're going to jump up to this area. So if you're right on top of them, if you're this close, and you go to aim with fire, you aim from here to here, right? It's a pretty big jump. I'm moving my mouse a good amount. And this is the difference between fire and ice, is the zoom. Ready? So when I zoom in, so that's a pretty big jump when I'm not zoomed. It's even bigger when it's almost double or triple the amount of room I need to move my mouse to get from the bottom of this to the top of this. So for you to shoot somebody close range, if you don't have a big mouse pad or you have really slow sensitivity like I do, your arm is going to go from here, and you got to like really launch your arm, and it's a lot of movement to move that short distance. Whereas if it's Flame, it's just from here to here, right? It's not nearly as much. So the zoom on the ice really affects your ability to use it close range. It doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it much harder to hit. And this is like the little nuanced things that I was telling you about that you don't really think about when it comes to aim. Now, let's back up a little bit, right? So let's come over here. Even with flame, this is a pretty good distance to use flame at because flame's a pretty fast projectile. See, it's not in the air for very long. So now it goes from having to aim from the bottom here all the way to the top, which is probably, I wish I had a mouse cam. I'd say 4 or 5 inches of mouse movement on my sensitivity, at least. If I come back here, it turns into about 1. So this is a good distance because you barely have to move your mouse to get to where they're at. You can just do a real easy, nice little twitch movement instead of having to move your entire arm across your entire table. So this is what I mean when I talk about distance. So you want to make your shot the easiest to hit that you possibly can, and that is dictated by the amount of distance in between you and your enemy. So if I keep going further back, so say I come back here with a frost, I'm aiming at the bottom. Once I zoom in, it's about that same shot as it is with the flame. So you want to keep it in that comfortable zone of being able to move your mouse just a little bit. You're far enough away to where you don't have to throw your arm all around to get to the target, but you're not far enough away to where you have to predict somebody 5 or 6 seconds in the future. So like I was saying, this applies for every gauntlet. It doesn't apply just to ice. That's why I didn't want to make this just an ice video. But this will definitely help with your ice, and it'll help you when you're playing because it'll make you conscious of thinking about which gauntlet you need to be using in which situation, especially if you're switching gauntlets. This is my usual build, is Toxic on the right, Flame on the left, and then Ice in my pocket. And then I switch between the Flame and Ice when I need to. And being able to distinguish when to use each gauntlet really takes you from like being a noob to knowing what you're doing and being able to effectively fight. So there's like a bunch of positioning stuff that you need to know in this game that helps you make the shot easier, right? Obviously it's super nice to be able to do like fast twitch shots and hit people whenever you want and not really have to worry about that so much. That helps as well, but that comes with time. Whereas making the shot as easy on yourself as possible is really what makes you seem like you're an aim god. I'd say it's like 30% being able to move your mouse where you want it, and another 70% positioning and distance and everything else. There's so much more to aiming than just being able to snap to a target, but obviously being able to snap to a target is good too. Another big thing that comes with aim in this game is you have such a hard time keeping track of people, especially if you're like really close on somebody. Say I'm like right on top of somebody. It's that same distance thing that I was telling you about where you have to aim up or down. People can move like all the way around you and you won't even know where they went because you have to do such a big arc to follow where they're at. So you want to keep a little bit of a distance if you can, so that way it's easier to track. And I'd say the best way, this is why I use Tempest for the majority of the entire time that I've been playing this game, is you want to stay kind of above the fight. If you can keep a distance in between you and you can be above the person, it's so much easier to track somebody that's below you than above you. And also hitting shots below you are so much easier than hitting shots where you're looking like straight up in the air and you're getting kind of like almost dizzy kind of looking up. It's very, when you're looking in the sky, there's no markers to let you know how far something is. So if you're looking down at the ground, it's like, I know this tree is this distance, I know that tree's that distance, but you're looking in the air, it's just empty space. It's very hard. You're just basing the timing of your aim, whether the person is this big or whether they're that big. So it's really hard to tell distance if you're looking up, and that makes it incredibly hard to predict. And also if you're trying to like use Toxic, you aim straight up and it doesn't even go where you're aiming anyways. So that's another thing. If you can just stay on top of somebody and kind of keep the high ground on them, and you want to be leading them into your shot. So if you're like getting chased or you are in a fight just in general, you should be you want to be puppeting them. So you want to move in a way that makes them move where you want them. So usually I'm kind of like a kiter. So I get people to chase me a lot. I don't really W key so much. I mean, I can, but I prefer, if I'm in like a really intense fight with another good player, if I can get them to follow me, I know exactly where they're going to be because they're going to try to land on my footsteps. They're basically chasing me. So if I jump here and then jump up here, they're going to be coming right where I just was. So I know where they're going to be, and I know where I need to aim to be able to hit them. Whereas if I just run at somebody and then we are right here and we're both fighting and just trying to move like this, it's just kind of a cluster of everybody going back and forth, and that's when it really comes down to just who is the better at flicking their shots. So if you can like get above them and get them to move where you want them to move, that makes your shot so much easier. That's what you should be thinking about when it comes to improving aim, instead of just, can I snap up to this target over here? Whereas you can always practice your snapping abilities and pick things to shoot at, and just keep doing that because that'll build your muscle memory. But in reality, you should be thinking about, how can I make this shot the easiest shot possible? Another little thing that is kind of obvious, but not a lot of people talk about. I used to talk about this a lot when I would play Call of Duty, and people would ask, how do I snipe, basically, and how do I hit shots in Call of Duty? It all comes down to where you're looking, right? So if you're trying to catch a baseball, like if you're teaching a little kid to catch a baseball, you always tell them, keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the ball. Because if you're not looking at it, there's no way for you to know where the ball is. If you're looking where it's at, you can catch it as soon as it hits your hand because you see it coming, right? But if you're looking away, you're kind of waiting on that feel, and you're hoping to get lucky. You're hoping that your glove's going to be in the right spot. Well, it's like the same thing with aiming. So I want to be looking right at my target. I don't know how to really show you guys this because I don't have an eye tracker, but the whole time I'm fighting this guy, I want to be looking right at him and just keeping my eyes positioned on him. The more you can keep your eyes looking directly at the person you're fighting, the easier it is to hit shots. So if you want to be looking right at him, you don't want to be looking at the tree or where he's going to be going. You want to be looking at the person, and you want to try to keep your eyes sharp and kind of in tune with where the person's at. I hope that made sense, because that's kind of the most vague thing, but just it sounds so simple and so stupid, but just look at the person you're trying to hit. You'll notice if you start paying attention to when you're missing and when you're like hitting all your shots and when you're missing. A lot of the difference is whether you're being lazy with your eyes or not. Because if you're being lazy with your eyes, you're not tracking well, you're not following where the person is. And it also comes down to just being lazy with movement and distance and stuff. So yeah. Another thing that you shouldn't do, don't go into somebody's stream and ask them what sensitivity they're playing on and then play on that exact sensitivity. You could use that as a base. But I mean, some people are wrist aimers, some people are arm aimers, some people play with controller, right? I mean, your sensitivity varies from person to person. It's all about what you're comfortable with. If you really have no idea what feels good to you, you should definitely, you can take that person's sensitivity and then kind of build off of it, I guess. So start where they're at, and then if you feel like, so if I'm trying to go from here to that window right there, and then I see that I keep jumping too far to the left all the way over to the wall, then I want to reduce my sensitivity because clearly it's too fast since I'm over aiming the target. But if I'm trying to jump to the window and then I end up on this pole over here and I keep doing that, then you want to increase it a little bit so that way your sensitivity gets you to where you're trying to aim and not past it and not in front of it. If it's in front of the target, if it's closer to where you were originally aiming, then you need to raise your sensitivity. And if it's farther than the target, you need to reduce it. Also, speaking of sensitivities, if you're trying to snipe, change your sensitivity scale, your zoom sensitivity scale. So if you, what this is specific to ice as when I'm making this video. So the sensitivity will decrease as you're zooming in to kind of make it feel more fluid as to where you're aiming. I guess it's really, really hard to explain. But basically, if it's really high up, it's going to take you the same amount of mouse distance to move from here to here zoomed in as it would if you were zoomed out, I guess, is the way. That's kind of the best way I can explain it. You guys will have to go in and mess around with it, but you'll notice that if your zoom sensitivity scale is all the way up, when you're zoomed in, your mouse is going to feel super fast and super slippery. So you're going to be trying to aim at this rock and you're going to be all the way over here because it's just so sensitive. So you definitely want to lower that when you're sniping. If you guys have any like specific questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment down below. Even just questions. If you leave a comment at all, it helps this video grow. But I'm definitely willing to answer questions. If you want something more in depth, visit the stream. And one of my favorite things is going into topics like this on stream. So come in, ask some questions, and yeah, check out the stream because I can offer up a bunch more help there and a bunch more specific to you help, I guess, on the stream than I can on the video, because once this video is recorded, that's all you get. So check out the stream. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. I do hope that you found this helpful. I spent a lot of time explaining this to other people and thinking about this a lot, so I put a lot of effort into this, and I hope that it pays off for you guys. Anyways, my name is Marcus, aka Apostle. Thanks again for watching, and see you guys next time.